is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable, and today we have a very, very special guest, Max Moon, one of our absolute favorite creators in the hobby, is here today to talk about their upcoming Kickstarter, 12 Years at Sea, Into the Unknown Islands, an epic seafaring TTRPG for one or more players inspired by classic weird fiction, mythology, and Harryhausen films, and it will be on Kickstarter from June 24th. This is something that is fully in our wheelhouse, and we are stoked to have you here. Max, how are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me. Nice to see y'all again.
Always a good time.
Yeah, man. I gotta say, ongoing since you've come around and you landed on our radar and we've become friendly, like one of my absolute top guys in this hobby. Like everything that you put out is more exquisite and cool than the next, and also like very readable, which is like a, to me, very important thing, especially if you're going to use it as a tool. But, you know, for those of our listeners who may not be familiar with your work, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and talk a little bit about what 12 Years is?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Max Moon, Max Moon Games, but also recently launched the collaboration Flaming Hand with my buddy Jonica Stuckey. And so Max Moon Games has just recently become an imprint of Flaming Hand. So we're doing like more projects together, some of our bigger projects that way. So, but we're keeping the Max Moon Games brand on for some of these things, like where I'm like hand screen printing covers and stuff like that. So making like, you know, I love making things really pretty and nicer than they need to be. And it's like one of my favorite things about all this. And like, huge fan of working with my hands. And when I'm working with other people, especially like local printers and people who like are making things physically, risograph printing, all that stuff, that is a big part of what I do and what I get into. The other thing I'll just, I guess, to switch to 12 Years. So 12 Years is the, like, that's the first thing that I made when doing RPG zines and stuff. And I just had been remembering like back when I was a kid and like got into programming and was like playing MUDs and like making like text-based RPGs and like all this stuff, and this sort of like feeling of exploration and this nostalgia for like I had played like D&D with my dad in the 80s, and like that sense of like everything being new, and kind of feeling like, man, I love, like, there's a lot of stuff role playing has become, but also I kind of want to get back to this like old school feel, but not old school mechanics. Just like capture that spirit of when I was a kid, and like a D12 felt like the most bizarre thing. And I also got really into the idea of like solo games, and it was the pandemic, and so I put together this like project that was really just a set of tables at first. And then the Kickstarter did better than I expected, and I had some money for art and like editing and stuff, and I was like, oh, I can make this like awesome. And that's, I'd also been like doing a bunch of printmaking, mokuhanga, like woodblock, Japanese woodblock style, and I used to be a screen printer. So kind of just like pulling all that together and just be like, what if I just take all the things I like doing and do them in one object? So that was kind of the start of it. And since then I've been trying to release like a new expansion every year for 12 years. Not every year for 12 years. Every year for the game 12 years. I'll say that eventually though. I've got like 8 more to go or something, or 9 more, 7 more to go. I don't know. That'll be fun. I should do a 12 years anniversary on the 12 year. But yeah, so it's a solo game, but it's also multiplayer. It's got multiplayer options, but it's really designed to be like, you can sit and play, you can like play competitively, you can play collaboratively, you can ebb and flow out of that, kind of trying to capture this idea of like, what if I had a epic campaign condensed into a really tiny amount of playtime. Also because when I was young, I would play D&D for like 6 to 12 hours with my friends, and we'd play like regularly. And so it's like the amount of ground you can cover It's huge. So I was like, what if I do like a little bit pull back, do a bigger level of distraction, and add in this time elements. You got this whole campaign, it's 12 years long. And I was like, oh, the story becomes about the campaign, less so than about the players. So it's like more about the quest, and every like player, like character, it's like a resource. You're gonna like die, you're gonna have tons of characters dying along the way. I could probably talk about 12 years like way too long, so I'm gonna pause there.
How many expansions are there? There's the base game,
Yeah.
and then there's the Lich one, right?
That's the core. Yeah, that's the base game. The bigger expansions we got like Demon Lord
Yeah.
expansion, which like Justine Jones did some amazing artwork for that. That cover for the Demon Lord was beautiful.
Justine Jones is the greatest.
Yeah, man, I love her so much. And same with Robin Harris or Mystic Barbarism did some absolutely phenomenal work on the Demon Lord expansion. This like sunken castle like goes through the spread is beautiful. And my buddy Andy did this really cool like border with all these like ridiculous demons, like one of them giving you the finger, and I'm just like, I don't know, it's super fun. But yeah, so Demon Lord, it was kind of the big like first bigger expansion. Then I did the Village expansion, which is not like it's its own quest, but adds the ability to like as you're exploring like hex crawling, you can find villages, and it adds like little side quests and like like rumors, investigation, carousing, that sort of very like Lankmar inspired. In it, so like there's like each expansion kind of brings in a little bit of different kind of sets of lore into the like building out the whole world and allowing you to explore more freely too. And they all work together. So you can like play the quest, or you can just kind of integrate it all into more open world exploration. So I did the Village expansion. I've done like smaller expansions, like Exploring expansion just gives you like different encounters and different monsters based on terrain type. So 12 Years at Sea is coming up next. That's like the biggest expansion yet. And that one I am super stoked because like Hambo mentioned some of the stuff that it was inspired by. Like Harryhausen films have been like a huge inspiration to me since I was a child. I know I'm not alone in that by any means.
No.
When I think about like fantasy monsters, my mind is instantly going to the stop motion stuff, and it's like so cool. But also like Greek mythology, but also things like Ursula K. Le Guin and Clark Ashton Smith's like Atlantean fiction. Just kind of, I had been working on this and like thinking, like 12 Years at Sea, I had kind of drafted like 3 different versions and scrapped 2 of them because I was leaning into like pirates and stuff, which is cool, but it just wasn't striking me as like really like clicking. And I was like getting into like naval combat that was like way too granular. And then all of a sudden it hit me. I was like, oh, like Edgar Rice Burroughs, like Lost, like the like Caspak trilogy, where it's like you're like lost at sea and you discover an island, and this is like small local thing is just like, here there's dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Over here there's like harpies and a cyclops, you know, like that sort of just found that really appealing, the idea of these like small localized environments and these like unknown isles and being completely out of your element. So that's kind of where 12 Years at Sea falls in with the expansions. And there's some more small stuff I've done too. But yeah, I like doing little bits of expansions too. And we're starting to see a little bit of third party stuff pop up too, which is nice.
Hell
Nice.
yeah, man. That's the best.
Yeah.
You know, and I appreciate the, for lack of a better term, smallness of the expansions. You know, I definitely think there is a too much too soonness with a lot of works in the hobby currently, where you never get to truly digest and sit with the book that you buy, because then it's just the next thing coming out, next thing coming out. Like when things are a little more bite-sized and condensed, you're going to sit there, you're going to have a much more pleasant experience just reading it, vibing on it, and then kind of starting to kind of paint the picture of, okay, where do I want to take this, versus like, well, now I'm going to skim to the next chapter, and you're lost in the sauce, as it were. And I got to say, I love the approach, because obviously the Harryhausen thing speaks to, I can imagine, the majority of the audience. And if you have not experienced the glory of Ray Harryhausen's work, whoa, I'm so excited for you, because you were in for a treat. But like, I remember being a kid and seeing it for the first time, and the two I would say, obviously Star Wars, whatever, but like the two movies that I remember seeing as a kid that were just eye awakening for me, mind awakening, was The Wizard of Oz and Clash of the Titans. Like there was just my grandmother showed me The Wizard of Oz. I saw that for the first time at my grandmother's house, and she recalls seeing it in the theater when it went from black and white to color. And I mean, I'm watching color cartoons. I'm watching Tom and Jerry. I'm watching I Love Lucy, classic TV. But like seeing that when it went from black and white to color for the first time, I was like, oh my God. And then Harryhausen, I was just glued to the floor watching that. So like
It's
that.
interesting. Like Jer's, I've been watching them with Jer, who's like 7, and A, they hold his attention, which is surprising to me, and B, they kick butt, man. Like they are really good, and like even when they're kind of bad, like like Valley of Gwangi is like one of my favorites, partly because it's like so stupid, but like it's still like the monsters, they really do hold the whole thing together in a way that is like, I think, so important to role-playing games. Like it really is all about the monsters, right?
That's it. Yeah.
It reminds me too of like I think it's Brian Eno talking about like the flaws of technology will eventually be what bring us back to using them as art. It's like looking back at the time, it was like cool and advanced, right? It's like, and then over time it becomes like kitschy, but we look back at it, it's got this really special human touch to it now. That's like, you look at that and you're like, they have such style. Like, it's just like, there is no other skeleton with a buckler. That is the only one.
Yeah. And even like he was the master, but I've watched some other stuff like it's one of the Killer Brain movies I watched recently, and it's a stop motion brain monster.
Yeah.
And like it's not as good, but it's really good. You know what I mean? Like we live in like this world of like so much computer effects that have drowned out like even like the model style that was like Star Wars and Blade Runner and such. But like that claymation stop motion thing is just there's something tactile about it. It has its own life. It's so cool,
and it's a lot more alive in a way that art should always be. Where it's created by human hands. There's heart put into it. You could actually see the artist's thinking being put into every stroke and every step. Whereas, like, you watch modern movies, and I love modern movies, but the constant thing that they're always talking about when it comes to profitability, right? And we're gonna talk about some finance stuff here, is that these movies just can't make money because they have to spend so much on effects to stay current and to stay at the standard to which everyone has become accustomed, that it's like, well, like we can't just make a simple movie anymore with these characters because we have to have this. And it hits a point where you're watching some of the stuff and you could tell when it's getting phoned in. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful to the animators. I say it as it's considered to be phoned in because your boss is rushing you because they have to deliver by a certain date and everyone is trying to render shit. And now you're like, oh, wow, yeah, the effects kind of suck. It's like, well, that's what you get. Like that. This is the island that we have now shipwrecked ourselves onto. Whereas, you look back at the old Harryhausen stuff, you look back at old zines and things. And one of the things I appreciate most about what you do, Max, is that, I can tell even with something that becomes to a degree mass produced, that there's still the hand of an artist creating it.
Thank you. That means a lot. I really appreciate that.
I just really want to quickly interject that like the standard, like you're right, but the standard sucks now, right? Because it's standard. And like it all has like this sameness to it. And that goes for like video games, that goes for movies, all this high end production. So like I think that I just want deeply stupid.
It's
the whole of the show.
As technology gets easier and easier to use and advance, right? Like it gets easier and easier to emulate the last thing before you without your human touch like it having to react to, things are becoming Xeroxes of Xeroxes. I talked about this with Demon Lord a lot when I was talking with Justine. I was like, I don't want this to look like some macho demon with thighs and neck that are thicker than the continent, and she was like, I would never do that. It's like, I know, but I just want to say it. But like the things become so Xerox, like the degradation. It's gotten so far removed from what was interesting about like monsters, because
Yeah.
all monsters, there's now certain like standard features that a
Right.
monster must have, you know?
Yeah, and you get so far away from like the true body horror and the true, psychological horror that comes with a lot of these creatures. Like, and honestly, I'll tell you the two things that really stand out to me. One of the things I blame is Legend with Tom Cruise back in the day,
Yeah,
as
I
like
love Legend.
I love it. I love it so much, and it's like here is a really demonic looking thing that has depth, but also kind of makes you feel a little horny in some weird ways. But from there on, I think demons just started getting like bigger and sexier and beefier. And it's like, well, if we're gonna make them sexy, we need to give them an 8-pack. Like it's kind of gone in the whole wrong way. And not to say there's anything wrong with getting horny by demons, but it just like I don't need to see a demon that looks like the Hulk with some horns like slapped on it and the serial numbers filed off. To me, recently, cinematically, one of the most, I would say, scary demons that I've seen. Have you seen Hereditary?
Mm-mm.
Okay, it's more of like kind of a wasted human looking kind of demon. Would you say, Stu? Like kind of
Yeah.
like you could actually see the person underneath it that has just been just rendered down to like a primal like living form of like anxiety and fear, and to me that's scarier than like a buff dude
Yeah.
looking at taking the protein and creatine before they go get a pump on.
But I yeah, like I last night I watched, and I don't think that anybody knows what this thing is that I'm about to talk about, but I'm gonna do it because
Do it.
I'm gonna tie it into Max's work. Watch.
All right.
So it's this thing called It Came from Hollywood, and it came out in 1982, and it's like a clip show that sort of predates Mystery Science Theater 3000. And Gilda Radner, Dan Aykroyd, Cheech and Chong, John Candy are the hosts, and they basically just do a whole bunch of like themed clips and riff on it and make the movies look stupid. And they're all mostly monster movies. There's some marijuana scare movies and just, but for the most part, it's like bad special effects. And they're making fun of it. And yeah, I get it. But like, I'm watching these movies and there's so much heart on display. And like, so there's the in the middle of the thing, John Candy is just like, we're going to salute Ed Wood. And he's like, does this really good riff on like all the obvious stuff about Ed Wood's films that is, punchlineable, right? But there's so much heart. Like it's right there, and it's sort of like this movie's sort of deeply cynical, but I'm watching it and I'm just like, I want to watch all of these bad science fiction movies because all like they have these tiny budgets where they're making crazy decisions with special effects, and sometimes they come up with a monster or a scene that's actually really effective. And I think that's really cool, and we don't have that anymore. And I do kind of liken that without really comparing it to a D movie, Max. But that's sort of like the whole vibe of the zine scene, right? And like as stuff gets more mixed and standardized, it's really cool to have you doing your thing where you're making these, handmade bespoke zines that keeps the hobby grounded, right?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to ever take offense to being compared to a low budget, old school sci-fi movie. I mean, also
Nor should you.
I'm
But
so obsessed with trauma movies as a kid. Still, that stuck with me. Like, give me your like completely like just like throw caution to the wind. We're just making this. It's going to be ridiculous and awesome.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonzo filmmaking. Like it's just you have like this feeling, you have this story that you need to tell like you're breathing, and you're not going to be like, oh man, I shouldn't do this because like people might think it's weird. It's like, no, I'm turning that weird knob up to 11, baby, and we are playing it loud and
That-
proud.
That reminds one of the interesting sort of conflicts I've run into that I really enjoy, but it's also like as I've been like building more like people support and stuff and like having more money to work with on projects, I'm getting to work with amazing artists and it's awesome. And I'm like finding that balance of like, wait, but like I don't want things to get too like good's not the right word. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
don't want to fall into the trap of like, oh, I have more resources to work with, so then start like losing some of the cool factor, like I don't do any illustrations myself anymore. I love drawing, but everybody that I work with is so much better than me. But then I
Yeah.
look back to my old drawings, I was like, there's definitely like a charm in there that like it's not missing, it's just different, like Caustic, who did the art for 12 Years at Sea, it is so good. But also, one of the things I'm trying to be really intentional about to kind of address some of this is like being really thoughtful about who's working on what project and making
Yeah.
sure that they're just having a blast working on it. Like the artists I'm working with, trying to find like it's gotta like they're gonna have a good time. They get the spirit of the project and just like really open it up for them to do what they are excited about. So, but it's definitely been a thing, and like production materials too, where I'm like sometimes like oh, there's things like when I started screen printing, I'm like, I can't do something with foil stamping. I can screen print though, and that's cool. And then I'm like, oh, I don't know. So that's one of the things that's been, I see how easy it can be to fall into as you have, as like access to more resources, starting to use things that start to insidiously turn back on what you started with in the first place. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I think you'll always be kind of safe from that because when
Don't
you
tell him that.
okay, yeah, Steph, I take it back. But I think let me reframe that, Stu. I think a good way to remain safe and secure from that is to continue to invite people onto the projects that'll be as equally passionate about it as you are. Because when you're working with a team of people who are stoked to be there, you could tell it in every brushstroke, and that's something that will isolate you from being in danger of, for lack of a better term, the homogenization of a lot of art and work in the hobby, because there does hit a certain degree, and we've talked a bit about this on the show, and not to be ever negative to artists, but there are people who will hire them and not let them free to work. And it's like, well, it has to look a very
Yeah.
specific way. And that's how you get art that looks flat. You take an extremely talented artist and you don't let them bring their own flair and their own energy and life to it. And I think that's what the difference is between something like a first edition Monster Manual Fiend Folio to more current and modern Dungeons and Dragons art. You need to let the artist be the artist.
My favorite factoid is that there's like something like 30 artists on the fifth edition 2014 Monster Manual, and you never know it
You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because the art direction allows for variation where you would think that maybe there's thre,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're all
and
fantastic
nobody
artists.
looks like Caustic.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Right.
like it's crazy how like I just gotta say like the way he textures stuff with pattern, like the sea
Yeah.
serpent in the ocean, like
Oh
there's
my
and like
gosh.
or even just like that castle on the hill, man, like it's
So
super
beautiful.
cool. It like and it really gives sticks a pitchfork in the idea that you have to have color art, which is like I love color art. Color art's cool, but like and like I'm never gonna say no to delicious color art, but like at the same time, like I'm getting a little sick of color art because like black and white art is cool as hell too.
Well, I mean, that's back to my point.
Yeah.
When you let the artist free and you're like,
Yeah.
hey, I want this, and then you let the artist interpret it their way, then you're golden, man. Black and white art is fine. Like I'm currently working on a layout right now, and there's times that I was like, oh man, I kind of wish I had like I could do this in color. And then I sit back, I'm like, nah, it's not. It'll be fine without it because like I know the actual art that I'm putting in the book. It doesn't need to be colored. There is the color of your imagination when you look at it, and you are kind of just vibing on it,
Yeah.
and obviously, dear listener, we do have a little sneaky peeky that we get to see on our end here of what more of the art and the stuff looks like. We know a guy clearly, but the art's so good. The art is so alive and so like what it needs to be for a project like this, which is the city over the hill. My God, yeah, it's
It,
beautiful.
it's basically the texture and detail is a fill-in for what you're losing, quote unquote, with color. Like
Yeah.
like you could look at this and just sort of like sink into the detail and
Yeah.
the and it's cool.
there's a specific picture of a person about to cast a spell,
Oh, yeah.
and then the people who are reacting to it, and like to me, that's what a fantasy encounter should look like. It should look like, oh, we done screwed up. We are in way over our heads. This is not going to end well. I should have stayed in college. Like that's, the vibe I get from this thing. It's so good.
When we were talking about that piece, we were like, Kostik was just like, "Oh, we can put the PCs in a bad situation." Like, Tell was like excited about like messing with them. And I was like, "I love this." This is interesting too because I didn't think about Kostik for this project originally because I was so familiar with Kostik's color work, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like remarkable use of color. And then I saw one black and white piece that he had posted in our Discord server, and I was like, "Oh, that's like so spot on for this project." And it reminds me too that like sometimes you don't know what's going to be right up an artist's alley. But like Stu, you mentioned that patterning. Like one of the things that Kostik talked about was like that as a choice to kind of get at this like sense of like myth. And I was like, oh, that's so smart. Like it really feels like an illustrated myth. It reminds me of that sort of vibe. So yeah, I can't overstate how much I enjoy the artwork.
As someone who's looked at a whole lot of 70s, 60s, and 80s era books of monsters and mythology, this is really locks right into that aesthetic where there's sort of like, I don't want to call it a crudeness to it because it's intentional. It's sort of like trying to to evoke a sense of like mosaic or archaeology to the art in those books. And I think that is sort of also working here, like especially in that the way the spellcaster looks in that one picture that we keep talking about.
It's got me all hot and bothered.
Hey Max,
Yeah.
have you played Fabled Lands?
I don't think so. No, I have not. Nope.
12 Years reminds me a lot of I played it for the first time over the holidays this year. It's a solo book in the style of like it's Dave Morris, so like in the style of like fighting fantasy. But the idea is that there's 7 books that are each geographically keyed, and you kind of play through, and it just allows you to move around. It's a big open world sandbox, and the way that the 12 Years expansions all sort of lock together and allow you to kind of move through them feels very similar. And now I also started with the boat one in Fabled Lands, so like this is just giving me like big Fabled Land vibes because I love boats.
I will definitely check that out. Absolutely.
So, one of the things that I don't think we've actually touched on in the 40 or so minutes we've been kind of like gushing about this and talking about different kinds of art and vibe. Besides the call of the unknown seas, which is the point of this, it's an epic seafaring expansion. One of the things that you do touch on the Kickstarter page is that this particular expansion is an allegory for ecological grief. Why don't you talk to our listeners a little bit about what that means to you and how you're bringing that idea and concept into 12 years?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll just say like I love working with allegory, but also I'm not doing it like something like blunt, like Pilgrim's Progress or something.
Yeah, it's like Jonah and the Whale.
More like it helps to keep me guided and unified in sort of the vibes of the project, to have this kind of like set of emotions and like scene or like whatever that I'm working. So like ecological grief, I mean, like, man, I think about this a lot, as I'm sure many, like everybody is, but I have this sort of sadness about things like when I'm like, oh, the air quality is too bad, so I have to tell my kids not to go outside to play. Like
yeah,
it's heartbreaking, and that's just like becoming a norm and watching the change over our lifetime. And that's just like one example, right? But so when I make things, I also try to be very cathartic in it and address things that are really like hitting home for me. So like each 12 years thing, there is like an allegory behind it. And I don't like usually make that explicit, but I'm kind of talking a little bit more about some of these, and like the eco grief thing. Like in the way that this is the story of the sea wizard whose bride was drowned after he convinced her to come with him on this journey looking for Lemuria or Mu or Lost Island. And uh, there's this element at play, like every 12 years he's performing this like 12-year long ritual to try to part the seas to find his dead bride. And by doing that, he floods the known world if he succeeds. So it's like in that grief-ridden madness, he's destroying everything to try to get back what he's lost, even though he's not really doesn't really want to hurt anyone, And so it's like there's a sense of in every 12 years thing, there's cycles. When you win, it's not over. It starts over because there's this element of like hopelessness, but it's also like the hope is in that we like live joyfully in resistance and trying to stave off things that are maybe like unavoidable. It's the environmental, we're not going to stop it, but we're going to have like work our damnedest to try to fight against this thing that is coming that we created, and it's terribly sad and it's our fault. And so trying to like center myself around like what are the feelings I'm having when I'm thinking about this, and then taking those feelings and how do I capture those same feelings in this game is really important for me. It's like a big part of the value of making, but it's not super important for me to put it into the book in terms of like telling people. Like I want people to have feelings when they're playing, and I don't need them to have to like connect to the same like ideas that I'm having. But yeah, so that's I guess how I'd sum that up. Yeah.
Well, very cool. I think that's a good spot to start going home on this. The 12 Years at Sea into the Unknown Islands, this epic seafaring expansion for one or more players, is hitting Kickstarter on June 24th. It's going to be running for 3 weeks until July 15th. This one is something we highly recommend, and I'm very, very excited to see how many expansions you're going to put out for this thing. If we are going to get like one a year for 12 years, there are a lot of great tiers. And if you're just stepping into it for the first time, starting off with the Siren's Call is not a bad idea. You get the first 12 years book and you get the 12 Years at Sea expansion. If you want to catch up, there's a tier for that as well. And if you really want to get down to it, there is a tier that also is called the Sea Chest that has a box for you to put everything in beautifully that'll look nice on your shelf alongside all your other classic and cool books that you may be collecting. So there'll be links to this in the show notes. Max, thank you so much again for coming on and chatting with us. Where can people find you on the internet?
I am on, flaminghand.com is our new venture. Then everything's migrating over there, but I'm also still currently operating like maxmoongames.com. And then social media stuff, I'm on Instagram as like games.maxmoon. I think I'm on some other things too, but I always forget them.
The website's where you want to go.
Yeah.
And you know what? When you're there, sign up for the newsletter. That is the best possible way to stay abreast of the creations of your favorite creators and the things that they're working on right now. I cannot stress that enough. Please sign up for people's newsletters. You will be happy that you did. This has been another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG Podcast. Where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me at vintagerpg.com, where, incidentally, I have a newsletter that you could sign up to. It's right there at the top. You can just click that. And put
Who'd have thunk it?
Yeah, and you get everything every week, and I'm trying to, switch it up. Just this past week, I joined 2 newsletters, and I put that in my newsletter too, so you could join those newsletters. So if you have newsletters and you want me to tell people about your newsletters, hit me up. I love newsletters because I like the older way of personal connection through just direct connection on the internet without corporate intermediaries, putting barbed wire down. So
like Pokemon, got to catch them all. Sign up for all the newsletters.
Yeah, we get the internet that we tolerate, and I'm not tolerating this new bullshit internet anymore. So come with me, and we'll have a fun internet again.
Well, there you go. You can find me across the internet at John McGuire RPG. I'm actually actively promoting right now because I do have a backer kit crowdfunding campaign I'm launching on July 1st. It is called Days of Future Fairhaven. It's a third-party publication that is compatible with Weird Heroes of Public Access. I am super excited about this. At its core, it's all about stopping the AI from taking over a town with a 24-hour news cycle. Underneath the skin, you got a little more work in there. You got dance battles. You got horse racing. You have a challenge to reunite old friends who have kind of lost their way in their friendship together. You got a story filled with heart, a lot of in-jokes, a lot of gags, and a great time for you and your friends away in Days of Future Fairhaven. There are links to it all over my social media. Click to get notified. Please back it on July 1st on Backer Kit. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help our listeners find us. And if you really like the show, why not become a patron? Patreon.com/vintageRPG. It's pretty cool. For as little as $1 a month, you can get episodes early. We usually drop them about Friday or Saturday, depending on when we record them during the week. You could also join our Discord community, which is absolutely killer. It really is an oasis from social media where everyone likes to hang out and people are chill. You also, at the $5 tier, get to play in a monthly game with me. I generally run things that we talk about on the show or things that people kind of always wanted to try out but never got around to it. At the $10 tier, you can get in on my game and Stu's legendary and very deadly West Marches campaign. It's been going on 2 years. It's been going strong 2 years and not killed as many people as I thought you would, but man, they die real good. Patreon.com/vintageRPG. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor. Take care. Thanks for listening. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dead Go West. Art by Schaefer Brown. Edited by R. Alex Murray. Check us out at vintagerpg.com.